Yes, Little Mermaid is one of the hypest speed games that we have around here. It's personally one of my favorites. Actually, it's actually a really, really fun beginner game. If you're looking at getting into speedrunning, I would actually suggest this exact game to be your first game.
I recently started playing this a little bit, and it is a little bit strangely addictive. There's a lot of, because it's such a short game, there's a lot of interesting speed tech that goes on in this game.
Yeah, there definitely is, and I think it's one of the easiest games to actually beat. But then to be able to learn some of the tougher strats, and then be able to grind out good RNG patterns, it can actually be pretty rewarding as a beginner game.
Indeed. So we're starting off here. We're going to see these racers pick up this item that's a purple bubble, and that's a pretty important item for the rest of this run. It actually makes it so that when you use Ariel's weapon, her tail basically, to make these bubbles, it can bubble these small fish in just one hit, as opposed to two when you don't have this power up. So this is something they're going to want to keep for the rest of the run.
Yeah, without that power up, it's pretty much impossible to do this game quickly.
And this is the first boss. It is extremely short.
Things in KLM kind of stay on the left half of the screen until the fish spawn. By doing that, they can actually get multiple fish to spawn. It looks like Stuffin actually moved to the right too early.
He did.
But it looks like KLM is getting the quick kill.
And you can see exactly how much time you can lose in this game just because of how short it is. Like, KLM already on the second stage, and just because of a fish.
Yeah, and like Stuff was probably like less than 10 pixels too far to the right there. Like he was like right on the border there, and he must have just went over. So I mean, it's that close.
So now we're on Sunken Ship. Now this is another pretty short, straightforward stage. They're gonna you'll see on KLM's screen here. He's gonna pick up a shell pretty soon to get past these ghost fish, and then. The boss of this stage is an interesting one. It's actually one that frustrates me to no end. I think it's probably the hardest boss in the game, just because of how RNG it is.
Yeah, at least to do quickly, it's definitely the hardest in the game. There's going to be 2 eels that appear and a bunch of fish that drop, or crabs that drop from the top of the screen, and both the holes that the eels appear in, where the crabs drop from on the screen, and how long they stay down before you can actually grab them are all RNG.
Yeah, and that makes it extremely frustrating to grind out.
I will say, really, there's only 2 things you really want to watch out for on this boss fight. One is don't accidentally hit one crab while you're holding the bubble of another. And second, you don't want to be right where an eel spawns horizontally, because then they'll go right back into the ship and you'll miss it. But they both got through that actually pretty easy.
They did. It's actually stuff, it looks like, made up a little bit of time just because KLM got bad RNG.
Yeah, it took him a little longer to get it just because of the pattern, but I mean, they're both through it, and they're actually, yeah, like you said, they are pretty close now.
Yep. They're actually going through the is it a frozen sea? Oh, and here we come to the ARF section where you're on the ice. Now, KLM just did this thing where he pushes the shell into the water when he's on top of the ice sheet. It saves a little bit of time to grab that shell so he can kill those enemies in front of him. This is one of the little speed tech things that I like about this game. It's just little things here and there that save like fractions of seconds.
Yep, exactly. And speaking of frustrating RNG, we have the Walrus boss, who I think is the most frustrating to actually grind through in a run. The Eels is probably the hardest boss, but this one's the most frustrating.
Yeah, so you have to hit him with shells, and when those come down, they come down and he pushes them into the water. It's basically RNG whether you get a shell or not. Although I think there's some guarantee that there's at least one a cycle or something like that.
Yep, there's at least one icicle or one ice cube on the right side. You can get up to 3. And then there's no more guaranteed ones. So you could get an ice cube and 4 shells in a row, best case scenario.
And it looks like KLM makes quick work and stuff right behind him. This is a race.
Yeah, this is incredibly close.
After that, like 10-second loss on the first stage, I'm very surprised that Stuff is able to catch back up since it is really just so short. These little seconds matter.
Yeah, absolutely. They definitely, gosh, they're 1 or 2 seconds apart now.
Both of them getting that little wiggle.
Yeah, and that, like, there's a lot of things like they wiggled back and forth there, like some things that are just really, really minute, and it's really hard to explain and hard to notice. But if they mess those little things up, they can get hit and lose a lot of time, or possibly even die, which would be really bad.
Yeah, you do not want to die in this game. If you die in this game, you actually lose your power up, and that makes the rest of this game a nightmare. And so now we're coming to the seahorse boss, which is another bit of RNG, but it's not quite as bad as the others. I feel.
Yep, the one thing you want to make sure to do on this one, so you want to get the fish, but if you do get the sea urchins, you want to make sure that when they land to the ground, you are on the left side of them, if you can, because if there are 2 sea urchins like there are on Stuff screen right now, they won't spawn anymore.
Yeah, he actually got 2 sea urchins on that second to last cycle there. Very unfortunate.
Yeah, so he definitely lost a few seconds on that cycle, that boss. And already we are on the last full stage of the game.
Yep, this is Ursula's castle, I believe, right?
I would be lying if I said I knew what any of these levels were called.
So it goes by very quickly. I don't blame you.
I was going to say, I feel like I'm the technical commentator, not the actual knowledgeable one.
Technical is knowledgeable.
Yeah, sure. But no, I mean, yeah, this is either Ursula's castle or Ursula's lair.
So they're going through these like fish mouths, which are basically doors, and there's one in particular you just go in a few times, and it just brings you to the last part.
And so with Ursula here, there are about 3 or 4 different things that can spawn, and 2 of them, the fish and the seahorses, you can grab and fire back at Ursula. The starfish and then the urchins you cannot. So you want to get a bunch of fish and a bunch of seahorses here.
Yeah, KLM getting a really good amount of fish there for the fight. And Stuff's got to watch out. He's only got 1 more health left.
Uh-oh.
Oh, and that's what I was afraid of. So now you'll see what happens when you lose your power up.
And at the same time, though, KLM is on Ursula 2, which is the last fight of the game. She now has King Triton's trident, which obviously makes her more powerful somehow. And the object is there is actually a current that goes either left or right. And so you have to fight a current while grabbing a bunch of fish. And KLM is done with I believe a 724.
Yes, 724, a high 724. And now StuffnThings is going to go into the final fight. But you can see exactly how punishing it is when you lose that power-up. Stuff basically took that entire fight that KLM just did just to get back to this point.
Yeah, and you'll see this too, just like how much slower it makes this fight as well, having to hit him twice instead of once. The only kind of benefit to it is when you do hit them once, they do at least stop moving, so they're not still going to be running at you and hitting you.
They can still hurt you, though.
Yes, they absolutely still can hurt you.
So you have to be very careful. I have many times when I lose a power-up, I will run into them when I've hit them once. And Stuff finishes with a time of 8:15.
Yeah, and honestly, like you're going to lose 45 seconds to a minute if you die on Ursula. So, I mean, that was still a really good time by Stuff, assuming that he wouldn't have died on Ursula.
Absolutely. It was a very, very close race. Very good race.
Yeah, and it looks like after the Walrus, Stuff was actually almost tied with his PB, so that was pretty crazy. Well, Squid, I wish our time would have been a little longer tonight. I always enjoy chatting with you and commentating with you.
8 minutes is too short, but I do have to get ready for a race.
Yeah, man, I will definitely be watching. I love watching your guys' races, so it'll be a good time. Good luck, man.
All right, thank you, and thanks for having me here on commentary. I'll see you guys later.
Yep, once again, thank you, Strizer, and thank you, Game Over Cancer. You guys had an awesome event. and I'm more than thrilled to be a part of it. So have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your evening, guys.